Alrighty, I will go ahead and give your introduction then. Am I live?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this lovely rainy Sunday. I want to introduce you to our clinician today, Sandra Beaulieu, and she is the author of Freestyle, the ultimate guide to writing, training, and competing to music. And today she will be focusing on ways to help you develop your own musical freestyle on a budget, very important these days. She's passionate about helping writers fulfill their dream of competing or performing to music. She originally is from Maine, where she trained horses from the day they were born through the upper levels of dressage. She became a USDFL graduate with distinction at 19 years old and has her USDF bronze and silver medals, as well as her bronze freestyle bar. Many of her clients have gone on to earn their silver and gold freestyle bars and compete at regional and national competitions. During the presentation, please take note of any questions you might have, and she will be happy to answer them at the end. She also has articles and free downloads on her website, as well as we've posted them on ours, some of them, not all, that we will share at the end to help you get started. And if you do have like a burning question that needs to get answered just like right when she's talking, there is a little chat area. So if you want to throw your question up, you can go ahead and do that. And so Sandra, with a very big welcome and thank you to you. We look forward to hearing what you have for us today.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun. Thank you for asking me. This is I always like doing group things where we can inspire each other and, get motivated to work on our freestyles, because most of the time what I find is people really want to do it and they just have nowhere to start, and they just need to get over that like initial overwhelm, really is what it is. That's why I wrote my book and do my blog and stuff and gave you those downloads to start. You don't necessarily need the downloads for what we're talking about, but they're just kind of more to help you in the process. So yeah, if you guys have any questions as we're going, like I have a slide presentation, so I'll just kind of follow that. And, but I'm happy to go a little kind of off topic if needed. If you think of something is fine. Cause I think mostly it's just, we're having a fun conversation about getting you guys started on your freestyles. So let me see if I can figure out how to do this, because this is my first time sharing slides. So hold on. Okay, let me find my.
Wow.
Okay, I guess that's showing. So hold on. That's not okay. So if I go now, how do I? There we go. Okay, now can you see my slides there?
Yes. Okay.
Now it should be filling the screen. Does that look good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Let me see if I can get, okay. Is there anything, it's showing perfectly fine. There's no little, I have a few little boxes on mine, but I think that's just on my end, right?
Yeah, it's looking very good. It's filling the screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes, we already did like our introduction. I love to help people about their musical freestyles on a budget. This is my book that I've written. You kind of talked about that already, and all my qualifications, which she already mentioned for me, which was very nice. Thank you so much. So what we're going to talk about today is just a little bit, I'm going to kind of go in order of like how you would play around, starting a freestyle. Usually you start with the planning and preparation. You want to know your rules and requirements. You want to do your informational, like BPM, like how to get started, your music, choreography, editing, and then we'll do like a Q&A. So that's kind of like the little schedule we're going to follow today. Okay, so for planning and preparing, I usually like to tell people that a lot of times the freestyles take a lot longer than you think it's going to. So I typically like to do, tell people at least give yourself at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months depending on how much of a, how intensive a freestyle you're doing. If you're doing like a training level freestyle and it's your very first one, you can probably like create something really simple in like, in like a month if you're really intense about it. And that's fine. If you're doing schooling shows, even like a simple recognized show, a couple months will be good. But a lot of people save things to the last minute and then they just don't, like they're not able to get together quick enough. So, so the free downloads that she already sent you by email is a musical freestyle checklist just to keep you guys, you can print it out, help you stay on track. And then I have blank arena diagram pages. So those are really helpful for when you're drawing your choreography, just to kind of help you like formulate ideas. So that works really well. And then I have this kind of fun little freestyle questionnaire so that you guys can kind of go through and brainstorm and like get a little bit of ideas about like your horses' highlights, their weaknesses, their, and for music and things like that. So those are just fun things to play with. And so for the planning as well, like, keep yourself a nice little notebook, keep track of all of your, your information, your lists of musics, list of music, because like you're going to start at one point and you may like kind of go like what I call is like down the rabbit hole is you're going to start in one spot. You like this particular music and then it's going to go, you may end up completely in a different spot than you think at the beginning. So it's always good to kind of keep track, write things down, plan ahead, use your lessons, your riding lessons or your training sessions, make sure you video them so that you can use them for your, like working on your freestyle at night when you're, as you're going along. So on the USDF website, you really want to make sure that you have all of the musical freestyle rules and guidelines, like kind of print them out, keep them with you because, they can be a little confusing sometimes and, you might forget as you're going along. So if you go to the USDF website and you just search musical freestyles, you'll find the little freestyle rules and guidelines and it kind of looks like this. And it will also give you the required movements and additionally allowed for each level. And that's something that people ask a lot is like, what can you actually add in addition to your compulsory movements? So I really like I like to have that printed. I always have a copy of that with me along with other places to write down all my information, because that's the part that's not really that much fun is knowing all the rules and following everything to a T. It talks about how to prep for shows and things like that, just so you feel really prepared. And then like when you print off your dressage tests, your freestyle tests, you want to look at all the different information that's, oh yes, and we had a question for Western dressage as well. I'm sure they probably actually have a rules and guidelines on the WDAA website for the Western dressage. They're very similar, but there could be like a little bit like different for rules. So I wouldn't necessarily follow USDF for the WDAA shows. And definitely the compulsory movements and stuff are definitely different. So you'll want to go to that website, but it's very similar. Like all the information that we're talking about for musical freestyle, it for regular dressage also pertains to Western dressage as well. So when you're looking at your dressage test, I always like look down at the bottom that shows you your forbidden and additionally allowed movements. The rest of the test, like you're definitely going to want to know all of your movements, like inside and out, know how much spacing you need, for the lateral movements and things like that. But in the very beginning, we're really focusing on like trying to figure out your music and then go to your choreography, or vice versa. You can do your choreography first and then your music. Doesn't really, kind of matter which one. Oh, that's nice. Thank you for putting the links on there. Okay. So I'm kind of zipping through it because I know that like there's going to be a lot of really different questions and I really like to have like fun little conversation with people. So I'm just kind of going to go through all of these ones as we go. So we have the information, which basically in the beginning, if you're just starting a musical freestyle, you want to start with your beats per minute. Everybody talks about it all the time. And sometimes it can seem like really overwhelming, but actually it's really simple. It's just how many times your horse's foot falls in a minute. It's just the beats per minute. And so that's like going to help you narrow down your music so much, because you might find like lots of music that you love, but it's way off your horse's beats per minute for the walk, trot, or canter. So that it's very important for you to get a general sense. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, if you have a training level horse and they kind of fly around the arena one day and then they're really slow the next day, you know, you might kind of, you know, fudge, your beats might go up and down a little bit, but you want to have a basic one, you know, an average of what your horse normally does. Now, when it gets up to upper levels, it's a lot more, it's not more fine-tuned, of course. You'll change it a little bit for, you know, a lengthened trot. It might be a little different than a working trot and vice versa. So now in this photo, what I'm showing is my friend Alicia. She's putting on a polo wrap. What I usually do is I'll have somebody wrap their horse's legs, or just at least put one darker wrap or lighter wrap on one front leg, so that when you're doing your beats per minute, like when you're trying to figure it out, it's easier to see that leg hit the ground. Because what you're doing is, as the horse is walking, you're watching the front inside leg hit the ground, or you can count both the front legs hitting the ground. That's what the judge is going to be looking at. And the same at the trot, it's going to be the inside front leg hitting the ground or both legs hitting the ground. The canter, it's the inside front leg as it lands on the ground. So what you can do, which I love to use a more modern approach, and I actually have a beats per minute app that I use. And as a horse is going, or I use a video, I can just tap the screen and it will give me an average of the beats per minute. So that's kind of more of a modern, like kind of quick way to do it. The traditional is still pretty quick. I mean, the horse is going to like stay in a steady rhythm around the rail for 60 seconds, and then you're going to count the beats per minute that way. So it just takes a little bit longer to make sure the horse stays in a nice steady rhythm and that you're not necessarily turning on circles all the time. So then when you have your beats per minute, you're going to use that to narrow down your music. And so this information is kind of nice to kind of know on the top of your head, is that the walk, if you're just counting the one front leg, it'll be between 45 to 60. And if it's both front legs, 90 to 120, and so on and so forth as you go down. So a lot of times you'll hear a song and you're like, wow, that's like, I love that song. That sounds like a trotter, you know, or you'll think it's a canter. But then when you actually look up the beats per minute, it could be like completely a different gait, because in our minds, sometimes the horse's canter seems a lot slower than it actually is in person. So it's really nice to know, because it'll help you narrow it down and like save your music in different playlists as you're listening to them. And then you'll start to be able to search for the music that you want. So, which leads into the music. So the first thing I always have people, you want to get your beats per minute first. And if you get a little stuck on it, there's videos online, there's blog articles online. You can send me a message. You just need a couple videos. You can watch your show videos from previous season to get an idea. So that's the first thing. I'll make you kind of feel like you're getting started in a good way. And you can also use it for exhibitions as well. So for music, once you have your BPM, so say your horse's trot is a 77. So my Frisian was a 77. So I'm always in my mind thinking I want to be like right on that number. So I would go to Google and I could say, you know, songs with a BPM of 77. And then you'll come up with a bunch of websites that will help you find particular songs in that range. And that will help you kind of go down the rabbit hole of the music, unless you kind of know sort of the genre that you want. So my Frisian was big and beautiful. And so I used the Outlander music for him, and it really worked. And I was very lucky that the music from the soundtrack matched his beats. And then I was able to find other songs that matched the walk and the canter. So what you could do is, like, if you really like a particular style of music, then search within that genre in the beats per minute, just to give you an idea, and like save a bunch of variety of songs. And so if you use a program like Spotify on your phone, that's my favorite. I have an app, and if you're not familiar with Spotify, it's basically an app on your phone, and you search and you can save playlists, just like iTunes, on the computer, except it's on your phone all the time, which is really great. So if you have Spotify and you save your playlists, you can either save one long playlist with all of your songs, or just put like all your walk songs in one, all your trot songs in another, and all your canter songs in another. And that way you can kind of play around. And when you're riding your horse, as you're trotting, try to play all your trot music at the same time. Yes, iTunes does support playlists as well. That's very true. And I've used that a lot as well. I love Spotify because it's great on the fly. And what I found with Spotify is that I can use my beats per minute app at the same time. So then if I find a song and I'm like, ooh, I really like this song, I'll open my app and then I can click the beats to figure out what the song's beat per minute is, instead of having to go search for it online. So you can kind of do it on the fly a little bit, just to kind of get an idea what your horse does. And then you just want to listen to music everywhere you go. Listen to your freestyle music, and all of, once you have it finished and edited, you've got to really nail it down in your head. You've got to know it through and through. So as you're going through the process, just listen to everything you can. That's like, you have to immerse yourself in it, really, which is fun, but it'll help you get going. So as far as budgeting, if you can't afford a professional freestyle designer, I usually recommend like looking up pre-made freestyle music. And this one, Marvin's Music, comes up a lot because it's fairly inexpensive and they have quite a few variety of options. I know a lot of people that have used it, and the music's fine. It's not always going to be on your horse's beats per minute, but it's definitely it's edited. It's already ready. You can use it. It gets you down the center line. So it's gonna work for you. But the comes with choreography, but the choreography usually I find is really pretty terrible. So you can kind of try the choreography first, but you may have to really change it a lot. But at least the music is edited for you, because a lot of people really get stuck at the music, like editing it with software programs. So if that's what's holding you up, don't let that hold you up. Try this music first. There were a few other websites that I haven't used them myself, so I didn't want to recommend them, but there are a few more out there that you can try. And then also, when you're, if the best way to create freestyle, of course, is just to create it yourself and learn how to use the software program. So I use GarageBand on my Apple computer, which is very simple, and it comes on your computer. If you can also download Audacity for free, but if you have a regular computer, you're a non-Apple computer, a PC, you're going to want to use Audacity because it's free and it's easy. I think that, if you really know how to do, work with your software programs, then go for something a little bit more advanced, and that's great. And you can have a lot of fun editing and doing different layering and changing the beats per minute so it matches really well. That's awesome. But what I found is most people who are doing freestyles have absolutely no idea how to do anything on the computer with the music software. So that's where I recommend Audacity or GarageBand. And then just get creative. Talk to any young person at the barn is going to actually be really probably pretty good at doing online, doing the editing on a computer, because they're just so much more familiar with those kind of programs. And if you have any local musicians, they may be really good at putting together music or creating something for you, which would be a lot of fun if you could kind of coordinate to work together. And then also, if you have any universities around you, like I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, and there's actually like quite a few programs. Yes, Gina, get your husband to do it. Haha. Yeah. So, I think that like, if you can like outsource that part, if you pick the music, and you are the one that like knows where you want it to be edited, then it's pretty easy for somebody to kind of follow along if they know what they're doing. And then I also talked about the pre-made music, and you can ask other riders. Like if you have a friend that did a freestyle and their horse was kind of similar, there might be a possibility of being able to borrow or purchase the freestyle from them, but you have to double check that like the freestyle designer, like if they bought it from a professional, that may not be allowed. Like that may not be fair as well, because the designer, sold it to them, and they may not necessarily be able to sell it. It's kind of an up. Sometimes it seems okay, and other times people that doesn't go over well. So I would just kind of warn you ahead of time. But if you have a friend that made their own, and then they're willing to let you use it because your horse is similar, that can at least give you something to go down the center line. Like I'm just trying to help people get over that initial overwhelm. Oh goodness, already on Q&A time. I know I kind of like zipped through, but I kind of want to get back into my screen so that you guys can see my face, because I kind of feel a little bit like I'm lost here. Let's see. So now I can do stop. How do I stop share? I just where's my thing here? Let's see, escape. I can't see my thing for some reason. Oops. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So now if I can get back to oh, there we go. Stop share. Okay. So I wanted to go. Yeah. Cause I like to talk to people. I want to be on the screen instead of on my slides. I was hoping I could go like show a few slides and then talk, and then show a few slides and talk, but it's a little hard to go back and forth. So, so anybody who has any questions. Yeah. And I also saw, Suzanne Carroll is in the group. She's one of my musical freestyle friends as well, a designer. And another thing that you can consider doing, like if you're in your freestyle and you have like the music part, you feel pretty good about it, but then you don't really want to do the choreography part. Sometimes what you can do is you can contact a musical freestyle designer and ask them if they can just do that portion for you. So you don't necessarily have to do the whole thing. You can kind of piecemeal, go ahead and hire them to edit the music or create the choreography, whatever part you don't like doing, that can save you a lot of money because you're not having them do the entire thing. But when you are working with a professional designer, they just have so much more experience for you to work with that you really want to it is worth the money, even though it does seem like quite a bit of money, but you've got a lot of homework to do. So the more you can do ahead of time, kind of listening to music, knowing your horse's general beats per minute, maybe drawing a little choreography, like that can be really helpful. Now, in my slides, I didn't go through the choreography part, but the choreography can be kind of fun because I like to do, sometimes you can do your choreography first, like with no music, and just think about what would be the perfect test for you and your horse. So you want to lay out, okay, I tell people, okay, which direction do you want to enter down the center line? Which direction is easier for you to turn after you go up the center line to the judge? Go through every little piece and be like, okay, what's my horse's best movement? Do I want to start with the canter first because it gives them more energy throughout my test, and then I'm going to end slower on the walk? Or maybe my horse needs to walk before we do our trot work because it keeps the quality better. So you can do whatever you want with your choreography, as far as the order, try to make it really interesting so that way you can, you can have more fun and help your horse during the process. Like use your freestyle to set your horse up for success and you to feel really confident. So the other thing that you can do to make the editing easier, like if you really don't like doing musical freestyle editing, try to put all your walk together, all your trot together, and all your canter together, so that when you upload the songs, you're not jumping back and forth all the time. It'll be more test-like because you're and maybe you can go a little out of order and do like the canter and then the trot and then the walk, or vice versa, but it'll be easier to edit. Whereas if you do a really complicated freestyle, you may do trot, your working walk, go to your canter, do your free walk later. You'll kind of chop up your trot and your walk to different parts of your test, but the editing is going to be a lot more difficult, just to warn you. But if you keep your gaits together, it's a lot easier. And then Anne asked if I had some freestyle videos. I didn't pick any freestyle videos because I wasn't sure how to play them on the slideshow, but I have a bunch of playlists on my YouTube channel. Like I save different levels. So if you just search for first level freestyle videos or second level, like a ton of them will pop up on YouTube that you can go and watch and get ideas from. A lot of them are older. So if you really want to watch a test that's actually going to have the correct compulsory movements for the year that you're doing, put in the year that you're looking for, because now the tests just changed again, for the next 4 years. They didn't change a whole lot. So there's not a lot that's like super crazy different to keep in mind, just little things. So per level, you just want to keep an eye on that. And music with vocals. Okay. Yes, definitely vocals is fine. You see it all the time now. Like the upper level riders are using vocals a lot, but the hard part again is the vocals will be tricky to do for editing. But I love vocals for a cool entrance, or at the end of your freestyle, you can get a really cool ending to vocals. So, or maybe just pick one key song that has like that chorus line that you want to play with right in the middle of your freestyle, so that the music in the front and the back are a little bit easier to blend in between. So that's definitely very helpful for musical freestyle. But it is fun to use the vocals, but just make sure that they're appropriate, definitely appropriate. Vocals with words. Yes, vocals with words. I do like hearing ambient vocals without the words. Yes, anything that also has like that kind of whimsical, the singing and beautiful, vocals is wonderful. And that's why if you talk to local musicians too, you can also be able to come up with some really cool stuff. Like you might be able to have like some original music, which is really fun. It says here, I'm trying to keep my trot, walk, and canter together for simplicity. Do I need to change the music if I do a transition walk to canter through the trot? If this is like your first freestyle and you're doing training or first level, and you have your, your walk, trot to canter, transition walk to canter. Yes. Like say you're doing like your canter across a diagonal or something like that, and you are going to switch to another gait and it's really tiny, it's only a few steps of that gait. Don't like worry about it, because you want to make sure that you're able to go in there, ride your freestyle. It doesn't need to have like too much sharp editing, because if you're doing something a lower level, also you want it to be a little bit more seamless, and maybe your horse might not hit that transition exactly when you want them to. So you definitely want to keep it simple as much as you can and smooth it out, and higher level, make it more interesting and unique as you're going along. Because you can use the same music for a low level freestyle, like say you did training level, and then you move it up to first level. You can use the same music. You're just going to add in a little bit things here and there. What types of music is popular with the judges? Well, I definitely think that if you can use anything that's like kind of older, recognizable music from like the genre of when like the judges would have been like growing up, that usually is the most fun, kind of like, I mean, everyone's like different nowadays, but I mean, just songs that you would recognize on the radio or the oldies channel, even like those are really cute to ride to anyway, and you can use the vocals. So I think that you would have just anything that like people can like, stomp their foot to. Like when a judge is judging you in your freestyle, usually you don't have an actual app or anything to tell if your horse is exactly on the beats per minute. So you want to be able to like recognize the beat by tapping your foot or tapping your hand. And that's kind of how they're going to stay in the rhythm of the freestyle at the same time. So you want to have music that really accents that beat. And you can use the music to, like, if your horse is really like high strung, then you might want music that's a little bit on the calmer side to kind of help tone them down, help relax your heart rate. And if you have a horse that's really kind of lazy, sometimes you can use that like kind of upbeat music to help make them look a little bit more peppy, even though they may not necessarily be as peppy. So it's a balance, but you can use the music to help you feel better and have fun. The judges want to see you have fun, smile, you have your harmony score. So you definitely want to make sure, even if things aren't going that great, kind of like try to look like you're having a good time. And that's usually a little bit helpful. Yeah, Gina said she used the Beach Boys, definitely, and the judges loved it. Yeah, maybe not Lizzo. Yeah, maybe not. Right. So you want to use things that are recognizable and very like PG appropriate. Yes, that's what Gina said. Any tips for navigating technical issues with sound systems? Yes, technical. So sound systems, I've kind of seen like huge variety. And when you go to a show, like say you go to a schooling show too, sometimes, I mean, I've seen they'll play it out of a car, park next to the arena, or they have the really horrible, like tinny type, speaker systems that are playing like at a fairgrounds kind of show. Those are pretty terrible as well. Sometimes they won't play the range of your music. Like I actually wrote a freestyle a long time ago. It was like violin type music. And when I wrote it, I couldn't hear I could only hear like part of the range of it because we were outside and the sound system wasn't set up correctly. So what you want to do is make sure you go to your sound check for sure. But sometimes the sound check, they will change it for one person's ride and then they might not necessarily change it for your ride. So you kind of like, you have to do the best you can. But music that tends to have a lot of like full range to it and it's like, not really high pitched, like some songs get really high and really loud and really dramatic, and those don't usually play that well at a show. So you want, more of like the Beach Boys and the fun kind of music that stays in like that mid-range is going to sound better on your sound system than something that's like, like even the classical that can get overly dramatic gets a little screechy a little bit, and not as much fun to listen to. Now, the other thing is horses, like the horses can get really nervous about the sound system and it can really scare them. So when you're at home, you want to really practice with speakers coming really loud from one area, because usually the speakers will not be like nicely set up all the way around the arena unless you're at like a really big show, you're at a regionals or a championships type show. Those shows usually have really good sound systems. But if you're at a smaller show, sometimes it's coming right from behind the judge and the horse is already scared of the judge's booth, and then you add the music and then it might crackle a little bit, so you have to be prepared that like, what is your horse going to do when he hears that noise? Like my horse, he was very scared of weird noises. So like when the music would start and it would pop a little bit, that would like make him really upset. So and some horses could care less. But I think that if you can just go to different circumstances and practice, that would be the best thing. But definitely do it before the day of the show because you might have a big problem, you know, with the wind. Sometimes you can also maybe not hear when the wind is blowing really strongly. Let's see. And if anybody has any suggestions or experiences of like places they've gone and like doing the sound systems, let me know, definitely. And someone said they invested in a rocker blocker speaker and used it, and that's great. I use the little, what is it called? A boom. It's like you need the little Bose speakers too. And so those don't hurt the horse's ears at all. Those are great, though. They're just kind of like little individual ones for practicing your freestyle. If you can't keep your phone in your pocket, like set that on your, you know, arena side and use that to help you as you're practicing your music. Like those work really well, just like the wireless Bluetooth speakers. How do you usually give your freestyle to a show? Typically supposed to prepare a CD or provide a link. Yeah, definitely. Like they still do CDs. Some shows are getting like a lot more advanced and you can actually submit your music in like a WAV file format by email or by email. Like sometimes they'll have you submit it that way, but you would normally bring a CD with you and make extra copies because you never know. You have one in your trailer as a backup, one in your truck, one in your bag. You know, I used to have like 3 to 4, and because, you know, if one gets scratched or one gets lost, and sometimes that can be a big problem, is your music may not play that well, and then you have to like grab a backup if it skips, if they have a really bad sound system. There was a showgrounds down here that had just like a boom box, and then they put like the microphone to the boom box. And then when the judge would go in and out of the judge's booth or like move a little bit, it would like skip the CD around. So that definitely didn't work very well. And so that kind of will ruin your CD. So after each show, you'll want to reburn new CDs for the next show for sure. And everybody, the Bose speakers are pretty inexpensive. And someone says, the JBL makes a good Bluetooth speaker. Yeah, that's Suzanne. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, I like the ones that you can listen in your ears on your phone at the same time is really helpful, but it is nice for your horse to hear the music, because I definitely find that the horses, they want to like the music too, and they'll learn the routine, and then that'll help you like kind of stay on target for what you're doing. And when you're editing your freestyle, what you want to think about ahead of time, because if you're doing it yourself, is you kind of got to know yourself. Are you the type of person that goes to a show and you start to rush and get ahead, or is your horse going to spook and get ahead of your music? Well, when you do your choreography, there's a lot of like little places that you can put into your routine, because like to give you a spot to either catch up or slow down. So I really like to, like, you don't have to follow your rail all the time. What I'd really like to do is sometimes I'll have like an end of the arena that I'll cut off a couple meters. So like you're not going letter to letter, it's a little more interesting. And if you give yourself that space, if you're running ahead of your music, you can actually ride the rail to make up that extra time. If you're running behind, then you're going to cut it way off as well. So you give yourself little corners and little transitional movements in your choreography to help you stay on target and off target. Sounds like classical music with a large dynamic range may not be a good choice. It depends. I love classical music. It's really it's so beautiful. I just find that sometimes people go for like the really big dramatic stuff, and that part of the song, the levels, like when you're doing the editing on your sound program, you'll notice how it gets really, really high and the beginning might be really low. Sometimes you can level it out so it doesn't get too crazy loud. You can tone it down a little bit, but I think that what you want to make sure to do is just to have music that's not necessarily going to get a little crazy on you or start out too low, because if it's really low and has like kind of a slow dramatic entrance, you might not be able to like kind of hear it when you're going in. I definitely like to do unique kind of entrances. And when you're doing your entrances, you can do kind of fun things like add transitions to your entrances. Even if you're doing training or first level, you can do a walk to a trot transition and actually have it match the music. And that will, like, it's not being judged necessarily. The judge is obviously seeing it, but they also want that unique kind of feeling. It shows that you're really on your music, and it might help you enter and be kind of slow and relaxed too. So you can kind of think of little things like that that help you and help your horse be as relaxed as possible as you're going into the show arena. It doesn't have to be super dramatic. Nice and relaxed, happy music. Key transition moves the judges like. I think what you would really like to have is, like, if your horse, say your horse likes to fall out through the shoulder in the corners, then you might want to actually kind of have little cut, like square turns that you're going to use to balance your horse so that you can set up for your next movement. And then you can also use them to kind of maybe leg yield out or in to help you stay more on your music and balance for your routine. The judges just want to see unique, not like a test. So do your circles, start them between the letters. A lot of times, like if you go, between your secondary letter and your main letter and start your circle there, that way it's different. It's just a little bit different. It doesn't have to be like a test on the letter, as you're going around the arena. And use your quarter lines a lot, quarter lines, and even between quarter line and the rail, you can ride off the track. You just don't want it to look like you are not able to push your horse into the corner. Like, it needs to look deliberate and also smooth. The smoother you can make it and more unique and interesting, the better. But definitely think about your quarter lines, your center lines, and not going letter to letter. And that will kind of help you get like a little bit started. So I have some I have a little, like, for training through second level, I have all these little like choreography ebooks on my website, and people use those because they're like pre-made tests in them, and then they can like pick a test and then add music. I only have the low levels. I don't have the higher levels, but it at least gets people to get started. Let's see, information, somewhere explain movements that will increase the difficulty of a test to increase the scores. Well, on your score sheets, they're going to say the additionally allowed at the end of every test. And so those are kind of like cues for what you're allowed to add without being not allowed. Like, say first level, you can add some counter canter, but you're not allowed to, you don't want to go all full tilt like you would in second level. You're just kind of like, you're just using a little bit of it to add the degree of difficulty, but not actually show the movement. So you could just do a little snippet here and there, just a hint of counter canter or a hint of a harder transition. It doesn't have to be a certain movement in particular. And usually it's more about the transitions, like how quickly you're going to go from a lengthened trot. Like, you might go from a lengthened trot to like a corner to your canter, then corner to your lengthened trot. And that just shows that your horse is really on the aids. You want to highlight like what your horse is really good at. If he's really good at downward transitions, then do them on smaller turns, more sequential together, like put them really close together. And then, so that way the judge is like, wow, that was really hard. I saw that coming, and if it can match the music, of course, that's what we want. We want it to really flow, but you're going to have a lot of back and forth between you're going to have a lot of back and forth between you create the choreography. You might create your perfect test and then you ride it and you take a video and then you try to add the music and it doesn't really it might not work. So then you have to flip flop your choreography or pieces of it if the music's really important to you. If the music's not super important and you can keep trying to find different music to match your choreography that you've chosen. So that's why some people Some people will do a lot of choreography first, and some people will really hone in on the music first. So I think that it's just kind of up to you. Like if you're really like married to a certain piece of music or genre or style, then you want to like, you know, stick with that and then just keep finagling the choreography to help you match the music so you can do less editing, because the editing is the part that takes the longest, and you have to really learn your music so that you can stay on task with the music. Yes, my pre-made tests, a couple of them are all set, I think, for 2023. There was only like little minor changes in the levels, so those I'm going through as well, but they'll work for you. So how many people in the group have actually ridden a freestyle? They're like, yeah. So actually, I don't have a lot of videos here, so I can't see a lot of faces. But now, go ahead and tell me what your freestyle was. I can't even see the names. Sorry. Okay, so if you did a freestyle, what level did you do? If you, oh, actually, yeah. Okay, so people can put it in the chat box. If you wrote a freestyle, let me know what level you did, because I'm really curious what all of you guys, are you more interested in starting at like training level or first level, or are you more of like kind of everybody's like all over the place? Oh, we have basic Western dressage. That's great. So you guys do have a lot of Western dressage. Yeah, I love the Western dressage. Is like, they're really creative. If you guys want, I went to the nationals show or championship show a couple of years in a row, and those freestyles are pretty amazing because they really let them have a lot more kind of creativity with it. I think definitely. Yeah, first or second level. Yeah, it's usually where most people start, is like first or second level. It's a really good level to be able to play around with. First, second, third. Yeah, definitely. First, second, and third level to get your bar for sure. Did one for first time last year, first level. Good. Okay, good. You guys probably have like a nice group of people that like to do a lot of different freestyles together. I love it. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. That's great. I think that I'm trying to think of some more little tips. I know that like, let's see, what else did I put down? I think downloads, I can't have easy. Yeah. Highlight strengths. Yes. I think mostly it's just about keeping it as simple as you can and getting through whatever your blocks are. If you think that you are really bad at music, try to find someone to help you in that part. And if you're really not good at choreography, print off those pages that I sent you, the blank ones, a bunch of them on a clipboard. And as you're riding in your lesson, have your instructor draw, different movements, and you want to draw them and then ride them, because sometimes they'll look very different or feel really different when you draw them and when you actually ride them. Or it feels, if you make it too complicated, you're going to feel like you're kind of running all over the place in your ride, and you want to be able to like kind of tone it down and like make it a little simpler, because the judges are really going to reward smooth and clean and consistent and quality over being too difficult. Because when you do something that's really difficult and it does not come out well, that's when they go, ooh, I don't know, like they get a little squeamish when they're watching. So you want to really just feel confident about your level, make it easy, and you can always add degree of difficulty to it. But there's so much more to play with that I think that you want to make sure you can at least feel confident and smooth going into the arena. That's my advice for sure, is you want to have fun, because that's the point of making a freestyle, is to have fun. And then you can also use freestyle, your competition freestyle, for fun, like for exhibitions, which I love to be able to do that after, out of costume, go to a holiday show, or like at a local pony club show, and show off your musical freestyle. And I have a little tip for that for performing. If you go to an event, like say I go like to Briarfest and stuff, and there were some girls that did like a really upper level pas de deux together. It was really cute. And the arena is huge, so you don't have time to set up your letters or your arena. So what they did is they had a rope with like little corner like tubing. And so they pulled out the rope was the exact size of the arena. And so they had two people could just like put it down and stretch out the rope so that it created their visual boundary so that they could stay in the correct size. And it only took like 5 or 10 minutes to set it up. So that's something that you can think about. You can go to events to practice your freestyle before you actually go compete your freestyle, because a lot of it is working out the kinks. The first few shows, you're going to come across some bumbles and you want to kind of just play around with them a little bit. And I also tell people that you also want to make sure that sorry, the chat distracted me for a second there. So if you go to a show and like say you're at a recognized show, the first day, one judge might give you like a 65. And then you're like, maybe, oh, I didn't get a good score on the music, oh, it was kind of low score. The next day you go and that judge loves your music and you get like a 70 or 75. And maybe your technical is exactly the same. Like you have to go to a few shows to get a sense of whether it's going to work with most judges, because you will have some variety. And a lot of people get really frustrated and they go to the first show and they don't get a good score on the artistic marks, and then they try to change all of it, but don't. Just stick with it unless there's something blatantly obvious that you need to fix. You want to like kind of like work with it, show it to a few different judges to get a better sense of what's going on. Because I had one client ride exactly the same one day to the next, and it was like a 10% difference. It was ridiculous. So you never know. You have to kind of go with what makes you happy too. Let's see, when you perform your required maneuvers, is it okay to do them anywhere in the area instead of say it's C or A or X? Yes, definitely. Like say you're doing you have to do a 10-meter circle. You can like start your circle, not at a letter. It can be, and it can also be between the quarter lines in the center of the arena. Like you can stick it anywhere you want. You just want to make sure that it has flow. You don't want it to look really awkward and that you're turning in a really weird direction. So it has to flow like a test, but be a little bit more creative and, definitely a little bit different. My first show, I got a 5.5 on my music, was really worried. Next show, she got a 7.5 on the same music. Yeah. So that's definitely like, keep that in your mind when you're showing. If you get really disappointed or really upset, just try it again. And, you never know. That's personal opinion. And that's why it's so tricky. One comment I get from judges when scribing is do enough of the movement to be sure it's clear. Yes, for sure. Like, and actually in the USDF printout, like the required movements that I have here, they do say that like you're only required 12 meters. Like say you do a leg yield and a 12-meter section, but really like to make sure if your horse isn't great at leg yield, try maybe more 18 meters. So that way you are showing a clearer like segment of it. Make sure that there's enough there. Just doing the minimum might kind of go by really quickly. And the judge is kind of looking at the test and looks up and it's like, I don't know, was that a leg yield? I'm not really sure if the horse was just on a diagonal line. So if you have a kind of not a good leg yield, try to put it in a really obvious place that it's not going to look like a trot diagonal, because that can also confuse judges sometimes, for sure. I think it would be fun to put together a non-restrained freestyle for exhibition. There's so much structure in so many events. Yes, that's what I love to do. I think it's a lot of fun. It'll give you a little bit more use out of your freestyle, because a lot of times you'll spend months to create a freestyle and you ride it for that show season, like, 3 months or so, and then you move up to the next level, and then that freestyle's not doing a whole lot. So it's kind of fun to be able to like go out and play, put a costume on, or just glitter it up, and put on like some fun outfit with lots of color and go perform it for other people so they can enjoy it and you can practice. Because I find that when people are competing and they get really intense, it's a lot harder to feel the music. If you go to perform, your mindset is a lot different. You're a little bit more in like, let's have fun, let's show you what we can do. And if we make a mistake, no big deal. So it's a little bit more relaxed, and then you actually can feel and have fun with your music and get like in the rhythm and kind of play with it a little bit, really get to know it. So I would recommend doing that before you go to a show if you can, as your practice, and that will really help you feel a little more confident with your music for sure. If you do a passage half pass, are you scored for passage or leg yielding? Well, if you're doing passage, you would be at the Grand Prix level. So it wouldn't necessarily be seen as like a leg yield, because the leg yield will be at first level. So passage half pass, like usually you'll see at the Grand Prix, like World Cup, Olympics, they do a lot of passage. They'll do passage on a straighter line. And then they'll also do, a lot of times they do a regular trot, collected trot half pass, and then they change the bend and they do a passage half pass, and that counts towards the passage and it counts towards degree of difficulty. So it's not required. You don't have to do a passage half pass, but he or she is doing passage while half passing. So that's where you're getting the marks, is for the passage, not actually the half pass, because passage half pass is not allowed, or not required, not required. But the trot half pass, working trot half pass, is judged separately. So it's just degree of difficulty. But it's obviously pretty amazing when they do it really well. And it matches the music really well, because usually the music will change and then they'll have that really clear, distinct transition. And that's what really highlights the horse. Oh yeah, sorry, I meant half pass. I know, I was like, okay, leg yield's definitely not a Grand Prix, but that's okay. Sorry, I'm like, okay, how many minutes should a freestyle performance be? I can imagine myself getting carried away and going too long. Well, I think if you've created a competition freestyle, just stick with that first. But sometimes when you go to events, like I go and perform at big events, they'll usually give you like a 10-minute slot. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to fill 10 minutes. Or you can have, if you created a competition freestyle and you ride it as a performance, maybe you just add a lot more to the entrance or extend the end a little bit, but keep the bulk of your freestyle the same in the middle, just so you don't have to change much for editing and you don't want to confuse yourself if you're going to go show it again. But having a really fun long entrance as you're coming around the ring to get set up is usually helpful too. But it can be a lot of fun, but it can be kind of long. Like if you're riding your horse in a 10-minute routine, that's pretty long. So you want to keep it short and sweet so that like the audience, you don't lose their interest as well. And competition freestyle, you have your 5-minute time limit, but it doesn't mean you have to do the 5 minutes. You don't have to spread out your freestyle to get all the way to the end of the 5 minutes. You can condense it. If your horse, you can get everything done in a quick, succinct order, just go ahead and do it. It doesn't really matter. Then it has less music you have to find sometimes. And it's okay to repeat your music from side to side. So if you have a more symmetrical kind of freestyle, don't worry about like being able to flip, use the same music again, and it's okay. It kind of lets the judge know what's coming. Sometimes when the music jumps all over the place, it can make the judge a little nervous because you can't really feel what's coming. You kind of want to have that sense of like, oh, I think a canter is coming, or I think a leg yield's coming. You don't want it to be too much of a surprise, because that's where the judge and the scribe will scramble on the test and try to find where to put different movements and markers. The rule was 5 minutes in Western dressage. Yes. And also the regular dressage tests are 5 as well for all the lower level tests. And then the upper level tests, I'm sure those are higher. I just don't know off the top of my head what they are, but and then you want to make sure that your entrance is definitely the right length. You don't want to get, dinged out because your entrance is too long. A lot of times people are usually under in the entrance, but you can use your entrance like I said, as part of your routine, do something fun with vocals, but you can just walk in. If you don't like to trot and canter up the center line, just do a cute little quick entrance that doesn't have to be super crazy and dramatic. It can be fun and light and surprising. So I think, you know, put your personality into it because you want to have fun. I mean, that's the point, you know. I mean, I see people like get so stressed out about their freestyles. I'm like, well, why are we really doing this? Is to have fun, aren't we? You know, like so. But I see it's 8 o'clock. I can't believe I actually talked for a full hour. I kind of feel a little I'm sorry.
No, Sandra,
it was more. Yeah.
It was great. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that we were all able to, you know, come in with questions and all of that. And I encourage everyone to reach out to Sandra, look at her website, and a couple of you have been chatting. We will have the 3 handouts on our cdseastbay.org website. And then Sandra's got a wonderful website filled with everything you can imagine, all PDF, printable PDFs. And, you know, she's also available for a consultation and so forth. So this was a great introduction to how all the pieces that we have to do to make it work out. And I think, as you say, the most important thing is, you know, do what your horse does best, focus on those things. Keep it simple, keep it smooth and moving. And I think, like, I would agree with you what your last comment was, when those musical changes are rough or one extreme to another, they're great for the horse's movement, but they don't play well together. The transition of the music is as important as the transition in the gaits, right? So right. That was really, really good to hear. So thank you.
Yeah. I have one more thing. I have an open public Facebook group called Create a Dressage Musical Freestyle. And it's just free. There's a bunch of people in there, and like you can ask questions there. And there's a bunch of other freestyle professional designers in there that also help answer questions too. And if you need to help find a freestyle designer, there's some good people in there.
And what was the name of the group again?
Create a Dressage Musical Freestyle. It's a Facebook group, so just enter the name. If you have trouble finding it, you can also, you know, message me, but it's pretty easy to find. And if you ask to join, then you can upload videos. Like if you're like, ooh, I don't know what would fit this horse, go ahead and upload a little video clip. And everyone in the group is super helpful, and they'll help you with suggestions. You know, or we have a lot of people ask about choreography, like, you know, can you do the counter canter loop at first level, or can you do, you know, all the little like kind of nitty gritty. And it's really interesting because sometimes one person's done it at a horse show and it was scored. And then another person did the same thing at the show and they got disqualified. So sometimes the judges are also not always on the same page. So we kind of like hash out those things a little bit and offer support, and it's free. It's fun. It's just kind of an extra group where you can like post things and ask questions without having to do it publicly. So I would suggest that you guys can go in there and then you can kind of have fun.
That's
asking
great.
questions.
Thank you. That's great. I think it is really important to keep these conversations going, you know, the one-on-one conversations as well. Because I think, you know, so many of these questions were questions I had in my head as well. So it's very nice to be able to do this in a group format so that we all get a chance to hear these answers. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you everybody for joining. And again, reach out to Sandra. She's got her webpage all set up, and we'll post about this group on our recap as well. And for everybody who was on, we recorded this, so you can also find this on our website as well. So you can hear it again and get it really deeply embedded in your brain.
Well, and also if anyone, you know, it's really hard to go through like how to put together a whole freestyle in just, you know, 40 minutes. So yeah. If anyone has like suggestions about better topics of like, you know, maybe you just want to talk about one part, or how to get started but not get overwhelmed with the whole thing, or like someone suggested the videos would definitely be helpful. I have to figure out how to be able to do a video with also being able to kind of chat at the same time and stuff. Yeah. So, you know, any suggestions on that too, to make it easier to understand the information, I'm open to that too. I don't want to feel like I'm talking a mile a minute for an hour or so.
Oh, no. And also, did I mention you have a book? So people, do look at the book. It's a lot of good information in there as well, obviously. And, these are hard things to put together. And some people, as you said, are quite musically gifted and oriented. So they feel it in their bones. Others of us are going, oh my gosh, what am I doing with this?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really fun thing to hear everybody and to have other resources and people to help. And then obviously have your step-by-steps. That's super important. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Take care.
Thank you so
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Bye.